Welcome, everyone. Simon Rosenberg, Hopium Chronicles, back with another great event. Joining me is the hardest working man in show business these days, James Talarico, who is joining us from Texas. We're so glad you're here, James. And just congratulations on sort of lighting the world on fire these last few months. I mean, you've helped lead the battle in Texas, which really, I think, inspired the whole party. You've now jumped into the Senate race and off to a very strong start in this critical Senate race. And so just, first of all, congratulations on just stepping up in a time of crisis for the country. And we're really glad you're here. I think I've been getting a lot of folks in the community like, when can we get James on? We want to get to know him better. You're a popular guy. And so thanks for being here tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm a big fan of you and the work that you've done. And I'm trying to share my own kind of hopium on the campaign trail here in Texas. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, we are kindred spirits, I think, in that regard, James. Well, but just tell us the story that you're telling in Texas. Why are you running? You know, why now? Why is this the right time for you? Tell us about your basic pitch.
Yeah, well, I guess this campaign is based on the fundamental belief that all 30 million Texans deserve a senator who's going to represent us and not billionaire mega donors. After 4 terms in the state house, I've really come to see politics less as left versus right and more as top versus bottom. I see how the people at the very top, the billionaires who own the social media algorithms, who own the cable news networks, who own the politicians who are fighting on our screens, I've seen how they want us at each other's throats, how they want to divide us by race, by gender, by religion, by party, so that we don't realize that they're picking our pockets. We don't realize how they're closing our public schools, they're gutting our healthcare, and they are rigging this economy so that it only benefits them and not the rest of us. And so I'm trying to bring people together. I think that's the most radical thing you can do in an era of division, is bring people together across all of these divisions that are in our country. That's what I'm trying to do. And I get the sense that people are really starved for that sense of unity and that sense of hope and optimism. And I hope those kind of old-fashioned values make a comeback in 2026.
Well, listen, you're doing a remarkable job. And, you know, you raised over $6 million, I think, in just the first few weeks that you've been in the campaign, making you a force. How's it going now that you're a candidate? How have things changed since you announced?
Well, and what I'm most proud of is where that money came from. It came from more than 125,000 individuals who gave to this campaign, and $0 of that raise amount came from corporate PACs. So this is truly a campaign of, by, and for the people. 98% of those donations were $100 or less. And, you know, for those that have donated to federal campaigns, you've got to put your occupation when you donate. The most common occupation among our contributors was teacher, which means a lot to me personally, because before I was a politician on podcasts like this one, I was a public school teacher on the west side of San Antonio, a historic, beautiful Mexican-American neighborhood, and also one of the poorest zip codes in the state of Texas. It's where I saw how these policies passed in Washington and in Austin really hurt regular, everyday people, like my students, like their families, like my fellow teachers, and I decided to do something about it. And threw my hat in the race for state house when I was 28 years old. Had never run for anything before. I flipped a Trump district that people thought was unwinnable by running the same playbook of being honest and upfront with people, by bringing people together across all the lines of division, and running an aggressive, authentic campaign. And now I'm trying to take that playbook statewide.
And talk a little bit about how you think you're going to do that, right? Because it's different in a state house race, where in a state house district, which even in Texas, they're pretty big, but I mean, it's still a smaller community. Now you've got this enormous state with all the media markets. It's really, you know, the drive from one place to another can be long. How are you just thinking about it? Is it going to be town halls? Is it going to be neighborhood community meetings? Like, how are you thinking about bringing this politics to folks in a way that would be consistent with how you've done things before?
It's a great question. I know a lot of people have had their hearts broken by Texas, especially those of us who live here. I'm an eighth generation Texan. My family's been here since it was Mexico. And so I've seen how one party rule over the last 30 years has really betrayed our state's values. You may know that we're the friendly state. Friendship is our official state motto. So much of what makes Texas great is that we are hospitable to new people, to new ideas, to new cultures. That's why Texas is this big mashup of all these different people, all this different food and music. It's what makes us so innovative and dynamic. It's what's made us so exciting. I feel like the nation is always captivated by Texas, and that sense of friendship, that sense of openness and independence is really what's defined our state. And the Republican extremism that we've suffered under for 30 years doesn't reflect those Texas values. And so what I'm trying to do in this campaign is bring those values back to the forefront of our politics. That means I'm going everywhere. I'm talking to everyone. I'm trying to make new friends all over the state. I always knew Texas was big growing up here, but until you run statewide, do you realize just how big this state is? Probably my favorite fact, you've got Beaumont on the far east side of Texas. You've got El Paso on the far west end. My favorite Texas size fact is that El Paso is actually closer to Los Angeles than it is to Beaumont. That's how big our state is. And I'm going to every corner of Texas. I don't, I'm a little bit of a daredevil when it comes to politics. It's why I tried to flip a Trump district, which we did successfully in my first race. It's why I enjoy going on Fox News and Joe Rogan show and the Christian Broadcasting Network. It's why I like to go toe to toe on the Texas House floor with my Republican colleagues in the Lion's Den. And it's why I'm running for the U.S. Senate as a state representative. I like a challenge. I like being the underdog. And I like the freedom to go places where Democrats don't typically go and talk to people Democrats don't typically talk to. And I really think that's what our party desperately needs in this upcoming cycle if we're going to win in places like Texas.
Talk a little bit about how the immigration crackdown is playing out in Texas. We've seen horrific images in recent days of raids and families being broken up and children being taken from their parents in the middle of the night. I mean, how is this playing in Texas?
And we were just talking about the value of friendship and hospitality and our Christian value of welcoming the stranger. It's probably the most common commandment in our scriptures, both in the Jewish scriptures and in the Christian scriptures, to welcome the stranger. And the Bible says we welcome the stranger because we were once strangers. And you wouldn't be having a guy with the last name Talarico on your show if we weren't a nation of immigrants. We all have an immigrant story in our family. And so I think we've lost sight of that. We can have a secure border. We can create a sane, safe immigration system while still welcoming the stranger, by welcoming people who want to come here and build a better life, people who want to contribute to our communities and our economy, people who want to live their version of the American dream. That makes us stronger. It makes us more prosperous. It makes us more dynamic. We can do that while still ensuring public safety. I oftentimes compare our southern border to our front porch. We should have a giant welcome mat out front and a lock on the door. You can welcome strangers and guests into your home, but you deserve to know who's coming into your home. I think everyone agrees with that, no matter where you are on the political spectrum. And so that's the line I'm trying to walk. Right now, we've seen the Trump administration go to the other extreme of tearing apart families, of terrorizing communities, of deporting people who have been in our communities for decades, who have started businesses, who have been pillars of the community. Now they're being kidnapped by masked men in unmarked vehicles and deported to countries they've never known. This is the kind of extremism people are tired of in this discussion. They want someone who can both honor our heritage as a nation of immigrants and respect our status as a nation of laws.
We're in the early days of shutdown now and this titanic budget fight. What's your thoughts on this right now from where you are? I mean, obviously you're trying to become a senator and you would be part of this debate here. Yeah. So what's your thinking in the early days of this?
Well, this whole shutdown fight is really a fight about healthcare. As you know, in addition to being a lawmaker, I'm a seminarian. And if you read the New Testament, Jesus doesn't spend most of his time preaching or teaching or even praying. He spends most of his time healing the sick. Right now, we have politicians in Congress who have Christ follower in their Twitter bios, but they are kicking the sick off their healthcare. We as lawmakers, especially those of us who proclaim a devout faith, have a special obligation to heal people, not make them sicker. And I feel like we oftentimes sanitize this discussion on healthcare by talking about premiums or continuing resolutions, but a budget is a moral document. What happens to people who don't have health insurance? Diabetics ration their insulin, seniors skip their medications, and ultimately people die without the care that they need. It's actually estimated that 51,000 Americans will die needlessly if these Republican cuts go through. That's 51,000 flesh and blood human beings. That's a moral crime. In the richest country in human history, no one should die because they can't afford their health insurance. That is what this fight is all about. And I'm honestly really proud that national Democrats are taking a page out of the playbook of Texas Democrats and using every tool in their toolbox to fight for that human right of healthcare in our nation's capital.
I can tell you from being here, James, that there's no question that the fight that you helped lead in Texas, that was then joined by Governor Pritzker and Governor Newsom, really created pressure and inspiration for people here. I think that when people got back here after the recess in early September, there was a sense that Democrats had started to find a higher gear and were fighting at a much higher level. And I think all of you deserve a lot of credit, frankly, for having taught us how we needed to be responding to this in this critical moment. And so just hats off and, much gratitude here as somebody who's a DC guy, who's been pushing our leaders to find a higher gear and fight harder. For all that I've done, I think all of you deserve, most of the credit for having really inspired Senator Schumer and Leader Jeffries to fight harder. And I want to let you go and just say one last thing on behalf of the Hopium community is that, we picked 5 states that we decided we were going to invest in, 5 state parties for the 2026 cycle, but also beyond 2026. These were sort of strategic investments, longer term, opportunistic investments. And Texas is one of those states. And just in the last 2 weeks, we've already raised $20,000. I know you've been raising millions, but, we're trying to bolster the state party so that, when you get through your primary, and we'll see what happens with the primary, right, that you've got an incredibly strong party underneath you ready to go in the election next year. And so I'm really proud of the Hopium community for stepping up. We hit 100,000 raised for the 5 states just within a few weeks, 20,000 now for Texas. And we're working closely with your very able chair there, who's a wonderful guy. A big, bright Texas personality himself, Kendall Scudder. And but anyway, I just want to say thank you for what you're doing, for your inspiration. It's great to have you here. Hopefully we can have you back from time to time as your race goes on. And if there's anything you ever want to come talk about, just let us know. And we'd be happy to, have you come hang out with the Hopium community. And good luck, James. I'm really grateful for your stepping up in this critical time for the country.
Well, I'm honored to be here, and thank you for all the work that you and your listeners have done, especially for Texas. You're all honorary Texans now.
We're just getting going. We got a lot more to do. And good luck, brother. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.